So you're trying to manage yourself on a day-to-day basis, and the hardest thing that you find about running your life is managing your time. Have you ever actually thought about time management? I mean, really thought about time management? Because if you feel like you're the type of person who just has trouble completing tasks, that you can't seem to get everything that you want to get done in the same day, or that every time you make a plan to get things taken care of, that nothing ever seems to pan out the way that you imagine it should or would, well, it's probably because you have trouble with managing time. So we're going to talk about that today. Welcome back to the Life Absolutism channel. I'm Eric Allen, founder of Life Absolutism, and this channel is created to help people get better. Now, I try to target a specific niche, and that is men in their 30s, 40s, and beyond, but honestly, this information is just good for everybody. Now, of course, much of what I talk about has to do with just generally becoming a more successful, more basically productive person in your life. Now, we all know people in our lives who often feel down, they feel, depressed, they feel like they're stagnating, they're not getting anything done. And a lot of times the reason why that is, a reason why life doesn't go the way that we want it to go all the time is, one, life just has plans of its own, right? Life doesn't factor us. We have to factor life in, right? We have to consider that we make a plan, we can put everything down on paper, we can put everything up on a board, but at the end of the day, life has its own plans, and it's always going to have a decision in the process. So, we used to have a saying when I was younger in the Army, is that life always has a vote, right? So things in life have a vote. Weather has a vote. Now, I'm a pilot, right? I'm a pilot in the Army, and a lot of times when we're going out and we're flying somewhere, a lot of the decisions that we make are made based on information that we're drawing about our environment. So we're looking at where we're going, the route it takes to get there, the weather along the way, and everything has a vote, right? Weather has a vote. Weather always has a vote. Life has a vote. You don't know it. It's not gonna communicate with you, but it gets a say in your outcome. Time gets a say in your outcome, right? And so if you feel like you're often just not getting to that place that you want to be, if you feel like that you should be, remember our last video, you should be over here. You want to be over here, but oftentimes you're still stuck over here. It's because you're having trouble prioritizing certain things in life. And if you're not having trouble prioritizing things in life, there's a good chance that you're just not pushing in life. We need a constant sense of progress to feel fulfilled. We need, I know several people, and this is very sad to say because I definitely don't want to diminish anyone's condition, but I know people in my life who claim that they're depressed. They throw the word around like it's candy. And to be honest with you, there is a huge, huge difference between feeling bummed out and being clinically depressed. And if you're feeling bummed out, you're not depressed, all right? You're just not in the mental state. You're not in the position that you want to be in, but things are well within your realm of control. Whereas if you are actually clinically depressed, it's more than likely a chemical imbalance. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist, but oftentimes this is what it's going to take is medication. It's going to take therapy to get you straight. Whereas just feeling bummed out, what people refer to as depressed, is not actually a depression condition, okay? That's one thing you have to definitely realize. And if you feel like, you're a man in his 40s, you're a woman in her 40s, and you imagine by this point that you would be at a certain point in your life and you're just not there, it's more than likely because you're either not trying or you're not prioritizing. And if you are trying, you have goals, you have things that you want to accomplish, then you're just not able to prioritize the right way. Now, here's the good news, right? It's all well within your control. It is. The only thing you have to do is learn how to become a good manager of time. Now, I remember a long time ago, now I say a long time ago, but it was actually 2009, I went through the Warrant Officer Academy in the United States Army at Fort Rucker, Alabama, and much of what that course did was pure nonsense. We took a lot of tests on things that didn't actually matter, but one of the things that we did that I deeply, deeply appreciate was we underwent stress on a daily basis to manage time. And I'm talking about from the moment you got out of bed until you were downstairs in formation, and this meant dress, this meant bunk made, this meant brush teeth. You had 7 minutes. 7 minutes to get down there. Now, I don't always feel that there's a value to rushing your time. I don't feel like you always need to push your time, but just think about like the time that you actually spend on getting a task completed and the time that you actually spend on wasting time, right? You often waste time, and not you specifically, but looking at the average person, they just don't prioritize their time correctly. We are able to get so much more done in a day than we do, but oftentimes we just don't prioritize it correctly. Now, time management, it will save your life. If you want to be in a different place a year from now, the only thing you have to do is master this one skill. And you will get there. Promise, you will get there. The only thing you have to do is really dial down and figure out how you best want to manage your time. Once you finish that, once you figure that out and you finish a task, you finish a goal, like you're going to feel so accomplished. You're going to start gaining this sense of progression. You're going to gain this sense of control in your life, and you're going to start reflecting a different energy out to the world. It's amazing how when you actually start getting things knocked out, the way people look at you, the way you look at yourself, the way you carry yourself, you literally become a different person in the process. So let's talk about time management. Why is it so important? Why? It's because you have goals, because you want to get things done. If you're the type of person, and there are many people out there without desires, without goals, without a sense of wanting something more in their life, if you have no desire to push for anything and you're just the kind of person who just wants to, wake up in the morning, go to work, get out of work, drink a beer, hang out, play a few video games, watch a few movies, check out Netflix, whatever, and go to bed, that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. You will live your life according to what makes you happy. But if you're the type of person like me who just aspires to be more, who always wants to grow, who's like a tree that doesn't ever hit its maximum size, who's just constantly expanding and taking up more energy, then you always need to have some sense of time management skill. It just has to be that way, right? And I'll tell you why. It's because when you do have good time management skills, you're going to be able to break down tasks a lot better. You're going to be able to remove distractions. You're going to be able to focus on your goals. You're going to be able to target your goals and figure out the best way to accomplish those goals. And then you're going to actually prioritize in a very useful, productive way. Now, I know that sounds like just a bunch of word vomit, but to be honest with you, that is exactly what it is. I'm sorry. I just haven't had enough of this today. I think coffee keeps me going. So, if you haven't been or become the person that you want to be, and in a year from now, in a month from now, you want to be a different person, this is where you have to start. You have to start with time management. One, you have to put down the phone. And I'll just tell you, like, there's some pretty concrete steps that you can take, right? There's some pretty concrete systems out there that you can tap into that will help you manage your time. But one of the things that you have to do is you have to observe the obvious. And the very obvious things are the time wasters. The time wasters are playing around on your phone, useless conversation, chit chat, watching television, watching Netflix, A lot of times the way I like to look at watching TV, and I don't watch TV throughout the day. Typically what I do is after I read a little bit before bed, I'll turn on my iPad, I'll put something on. Lately I've been watching Breaking Bad. I watch it for about 10 minutes, my eyes go crossed, and I pass out. That's the amount of TV that I get in a day. And why? Because if I'm watching TV, then I'm not doing the things that I want to do. If I'm not doing the things that I want to do, then I'm not progressing, and I'm not going to be happy as a person if I'm not progressing. If I look at myself in a year from now and I'm still in the same position, I'm not going to be happy. Even if I become the most successful person in the world, in terms of, maybe I end up having the amount of money that Elon Musk has, or I have all the free time in the world, there's always going to be something that I aspire to. It's going to be, if I had all the money in the world and I had all the time in the world, I still want to grow in some way. I still might decide I want to take piano lessons. You know, I still might decide I want to learn how to scuba dive. I might decide that there's something that I want to do to broaden my horizons, to expand on my skill set and just learn new things. You know, if I had all the time in the world today, I would tell you right now, one of the things I would actually learn how to do is play the piano. Another thing I would learn how to do is cook, like really cook. Now I can actually cook a little bit right now, but I mean like really cook, because I just love cooking. I love the fact that you put all these ingredients together and sometimes you have to be a little finicky. Sometimes you have to play around with them a little bit. It's like a science, and you produce something extremely delicious, right? You see the fruits of your labor almost immediately. That's an amazing thing. But I love cooking. I feel like it's a very relaxing experience. I don't mind doing my own dishes, you know. There's so much about it that it just doesn't bother me, and it's a relaxing experience overall. So I would actually do that. I would do something, and that's what I think a lot of people need to do, is they need to expand their horizon. But if you don't want to, there's nothing wrong with that. It is your life after all. So let's come back to this. Now, if you haven't heard about it before, there is something called the Eisenhower Matrix. Apparently Eisenhower, obviously I didn't know him personally, but apparently Eisenhower, and we're talking about former General Eisenhower, World War II general, we're talking about former President Eisenhower, right, was a master of time management. At least for his time, the perception was that he was a master of time management. And now they created this matrix, or somebody created this matrix that focuses on 4 tenets of this matrix that break everything down and what you need to prioritize on, right? It comes in 4 categories, and those are urgent and important, right? Urgent and important means highest priority things. That means if you're trying to launch a business, there are very specific things that you need to do. There are very specific tasks that you need to do almost on a regular basis to be able to ensure that that business is becoming a success, that that business is growing. Things that aren't going to make that business grow, probably like your Instagram account. That's probably not going to do too much for your business unless you're like a drop shipper, unless you're selling a product, unless you're an influencer and that's your business. But if you're selling a product, if you're selling a service, many times that is a long road, the social media management. So if that's something that you plan on doing, you know, that's not a high priority. But, you know, dealing with licenses, dealing with certain administrative paperwork, dealing with, if you have a software, maybe, you know, your production team, your development team, making sure everything looks good, making sure your app store is clean, make sure all the information is there, that your designer's on track, you all have a way to communicate. Those are the things that, as Sabri Subi says, are going to move the needle forward. Now, he usually refers to the money needle, but there's a lot of needles, right? There's a progress needle, there's a money needle, and whatever you need to do to keep that needle going, that would be considered urgent and important. Now we have the not urgent but important category, and a lot of things that we consider urgent but not important would be like relationships, the networking, right? Sometimes we have to go out there and we have to network, we have to meet people in our field, we have to, you know, exchange information, exchange numbers, because at some point networking definitely comes in hand. But that's just an example. Is that urgent? No, it's not urgent. But is it important? Yeah, you bet. It's important to help grow your business, you know, to help you progress. If you're looking to become a photographer, maybe you want to meet more photographers. Maybe you want to join a photography group, a local photography group where you actually go out and you take pictures together. You sit down, you explore different experiences, and you talk about these things. Maybe you want to be a pilot, so you go and join, an aviation club. These are all just examples, but things that are not urgent, flying the plane, if you want to become a pilot, is urgent. Studying different aerodynamic factors, that is urgent. Important is broadening that perspective. Is it going to turn you into pilot, going to meet people? No. Networking is not going to turn you into a pilot. Learning how to fly the aircraft is going to make you a pilot. But actually going and getting physicals knocked out, making sure that you do belong to a club, you know where your resources are. Those things are important, but they're not urgent. All right. The next category that we have is the urgent but not important. Those are the things like, you're in the business and you're trying to grow your business and you have to respond to emails. You have to listen to customer service requests. You have to, return phone calls. Those things are urgent sometimes, but they're not super important, right? You might have to pay the taxes for your business, and that's urgent, right? Otherwise, the state will come after you. The state might hit you with fines. That amount that you need to pay might double if you don't pay that on time. So it's pretty urgent, but it's not moving the business forward, right? Those are the things you need to keep in mind. And then the very last category that we got, which many people find themselves actually in when they say they want to be successful, is the not urgent, not important. That's the watching Netflix. That's the surfing social media. That's the texting, the chatting. Now, anyone who knows me knows that if they come into my office at work, if wherever I'm working, if I'm focused on things and they come into my office and they just start chit-chatting, I'm not the best at chit-chatting. I don't like it. I don't like just sitting there talking about ridiculous things. If I'm going to chit-chat with someone, which this is exactly one of the examples I love about going to the gym in the morning. The morning crew is a very concrete crew. I feel like people who show up to the gym, anywhere between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m., they're just dedicated. They're there for one thing and one thing only. It's not the network, but it is to work out. It's to become physically fit, to become stronger, right? It's to do what you came there to do. Now, a lot of times, yes, everybody knows everybody because it's the same crew coming in every day or at least 5 days a week. So you're always waving to people, you're fist bumping people, you're nodding people, you're giving the down nod. You're going up and you're saying hi to people, but it's like a 2-minute exchange at most. Otherwise you're just getting back to what you're doing. You pop your headphones off. Hey, what's going on? Oh, that's great. It's good to hear. Cool. You're moving about your way. That is about the extent of how much chit chat I can actually handle. But if I'm at work, if I'm trying to focus on things, if I'm trying to work out and someone comes up to me and they just want to sit there and mindlessly talk about something for 10, 15 minutes, or they decide to sit down and just ramble, then a lot of times you'll see the structure. My face doesn't lie. Like, I can try and make my mouth keep up and make my mouth say, oh, that's cool, that's interesting, but my face will give it away. My face will tell you, I'm irritated, you're bothering me, please leave my office right now. And I actually don't mind being that way because it's more of a priority for me to be able to actually focus on my work than it is to have needless conversation. Now, I'm the same way when I go out in public. Sometimes, I can turn it on. I can be a social butterfly if I'm out for drinks or whatever. But a lot of times, I don't like to just chit-chat endlessly with people next to me. If I don't know somebody, I don't like to just have chit-chat. If I'm at an event and I don't know somebody and they just want to just ramble on about something, I don't usually like that. It's very difficult for me to deal with very pedantic people, and pedantic being somebody who likes to just talk about themselves all the time and talk about how good they are and why they're always a genius because they know how to do this better than the cable TV guy, than the installer. They know how to do this better than the repairman, than the auto mechanic. They're a hero in their own story, every story. I don't like that stuff. And usually what happens is many people, I will say, not most people, find themselves in this category 4 of the not urgent and not important. They're focusing a lot on things that don't have any impact on the needle. They're not moving their business forward. They're not moving them forward with helping them to learn a new skill set, to learn a new talent, to learn a new hobby. They're just not doing anything for them, and they're occupying them every day. If you listen to a lot of business podcasts, sometimes they'll talk about, and it feels like if you listen to a business podcast long enough, they end up talking about this, but they will discuss people who say that they're working every day. They work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. But there's a difference between working and working. And a lot of times what people do is they spend 12 hours at the office, but much of that time is spent talking, screwing around on the computer, playing around on their phone, hanging out on social media, updating social media. Like, those aren't the things that move the needle forward. But they consider that they're working on the business just because they're in that location for 12 hours a day. So you have to consider, what category are you in? Are you in the urgent and important? Are you in the not urgent but important? Are you often in the urgent but not important? Or are you in the not urgent, not important category? Because if you look at yourself, you probably spend a lot of your time in the not urgent, not important category. So if that's the case, fix that. That is the easiest thing to fix. Turn the TV off, disconnect the phone throughout the day if you have a hard line in the house. If you spend a certain amount of time on your phone throughout the day and it's not doing anything for you, don't. A lot of times you have to reward yourself with those things. And that's what I was going to say about the how much TV I watch. I like to consider it a reward. So at the end of the day, when I've done a long day's worth of work, I've worked out, I've done my Brazilian jiu-jitsu training, I've sat there and worked on the business, I've put up another video, I've edited something, I've built my skills, or I've worked on something. At the end of the day, I'll reward myself with that 10 to 15 minutes of Netflix as I'm falling asleep. That's my reward. Sometimes, while I'm going to the bathroom, I'll surf social media. If I'm on a break and I'm enjoying a cup of coffee, I might go to social media. But a lot of times, I honestly don't even like social media that much. I don't enjoy it that much. So I found it a bit more cathartic to sit there in the morning, drink a cup of coffee, and read a few pages of a book. Like, it's just so peaceful to do that. Now, it's not for everybody. A lot of people like to just sit there and surf the news and surf social media, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to take into consideration how much time you're actually spending on that task. So if you are spending a lot of your time in that fourth category, fix that. It's the easiest thing to fix. Put down the phone, turn off the TV, focus. Figure out what it is that you need to do and move the most important things into that urgent and important category. It's not all going to fit in there, but don't always have a schedule that's just completely mixed up. If you find that you're checking emails first thing in the morning and you end up for the next 2 hours responding to emails and it has nothing to do with your primary job, it has nothing to do with what's going to move you forward, stop doing that. Save your emails for the afternoon. People will understand. If you have an important enough role in your business or in life in general, people understand that it's going to take a minute to get back to them. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you find that, one of the first things you want to do is, focus on calls and emails, and it eats up a lot of your time, one of the things you might have to take into consideration is you're doing it because it's the easy hanging fruit. And if you've ever read the book Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy, who's another business influencer, he will tell you that a lot of people actually spend their time going for the low-hanging fruit rather than focusing on that one task that's going to dramatically change their life, that's going to actually make their business a success, that's going to make them successful, that's going to get them to that place that they want to go. But they're not doing that. They're saying, focusing on the business for 2 hours, the first 2 hours of the day, it's going to require this much energy. But I would much rather update social media and do this and do this and do this and check emails and use this much mental energy. You really have to take into consideration where you're giving your energy to. And that's really about it. Time management gets factored into many of the things that we do. It gets factored into many things that you don't take into consideration: your energy management, your health, your time, your habits, your goals, your priorities. Like, time management is a part of a lot of it. So my highest recommendation is to get something that you can read, because number one, if you're keeping all the information in your brain, it's not going to work for you. It's just not. Like me being a pilot, when I take guys out flying instruments, a lot of times what I end up telling them is less hands on the controls, the better. I know that sounds scary for being somebody who's not a pilot, but listen to me. When I tell you, take your hands off the controls, let the aircraft do what it's designed to do, because it's designed to help you. A lot of the systems in place are designed to minimize your workload, but a lot of times guys like to control, guys and girls, they like to control the aircraft. They like to muscle everything. They like to be too hands-on. And unfortunately, if you do end up being somebody who experiences some kind of disorientation because of loss of visual reference, then what you end up doing is putting the aircraft into a very unusual attitude, and hopefully not, but sometimes that can result in, tragedy. And you don't want that, obviously. So what I try to teach people, what I try to teach pilots, is minimize the amount of hands on the controls. Set the aircraft, let it do what it's designed to do, and then just focus. Just focus on what's next. What's next? Cool. Keep correcting this. And that, a lot of times, is what you have to do. But when it comes to this example, what I want you to do is not keep everything up here. You're not going to be able to sort everything, unless you're Elon Musk, unless you're like somebody who's genuinely a genius. Like, it's going to be a very difficult task to do. So if you're trying to keep everything in your brain, stop. Just get an organizer. It's not that difficult. Get something. Sorry. Get something where you can actually like write everything out on a day-to-day basis, and then you can actually go through it and you can say, these are my tasks today. This is my most important task. I'm not going to focus on the not important but urgent, or the not urgent but important tasks, until I accomplish or complete the urgent and important task for today. And maybe before that, you need to get some gym time in. So, you got to lay this out. You got to lay that schedule out. But before you can do that, go to the gym, you have to make sure that you get a proper amount of sleep, which means it's going to, go back to the night before. So everything is just kind of feeding into the next thing. So make sure that you have some kind of schedule. Make sure that you prioritize. For me, it's very, very simple. I know what the first thing I'm doing when I wake up in the morning is, and usually that's wake up, get dressed, glass of water, cup of coffee, piece of chocolate. I'm off to the gym for an hour. I come back, shower, breakfast, and I just roll right into work. In the evenings, jiu-jitsu training or flying throughout the day. But that's it. It's really not that difficult. If I have to factor in time for something else, then I sit there, I look at my board, I look at my strategy, I look at my schedule, and I say, okay, where can I get in this hour of training for this? Well, now I have to move this over to here. Now, this is more important to focus on, so I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to move it to the back burner. And honestly, I love the gym. I love jiu-jitsu, but sometimes I just have to bypass those things. Sometimes I have to say, I can't do the gym today. This is far more important. Or I can't do jiu-jitsu today, and that kills me because I absolutely love training jiu-jitsu, but sometimes I just can't do it. At the end of the day, when I go to sleep, I want to know that what I gave my time to was the thing that's going to move me forward in life. And unfortunately, training for a hobby is not going to, move me forward the way that focusing on my business will, the way that learning a new skill will. Now, don't get me wrong, going to the gym, maintaining a high level of physical fitness, very important. Jiu-jitsu has taught me so much that I can relate to life, that it is significant to learn, to do, to practice on a regular basis. But sometimes the things that we want to do are not the things that we should be doing. And the things that we should be doing are the things that move us forward. If you feel stagnant, if you feel like you're just not progressing in life, it's because you're not prioritizing correctly. If you want to learn how to prioritize correctly, you can always reach out to me. Of course, I'm going to start offering life coaching lessons here soon. But what you need to do is you need to get on track. Because if you're just kind of out there going aimlessly, almost like Tony Robbins said, it's like setting a ship out there and just letting it go without giving it a course. You have to give yourself a course. You have to give yourself a focus. And then within that focus, there's levels of priority. Is it important to put the ship on a course when you're going forward, or is it more important to make sure that the crew is fed? Well, the crew is important, so you want to make sure that they're fed, but the crew's not going to survive if you don't put it on the right course, because it's going to end up crashing into land. There's high levels, there's different priorities, so you need to make sure that you're prioritizing the right things at the right time. And honestly, if you sleep 8 hours a day, you work 8 hours a day, you have 8 hours remaining. 8 times 7. Think about that. 8 times 7. 56 hours a week that you can be sitting there learning a new skill. I mean, imagine breaking down 56 hours. You got gym 5 hours a week. You got jiu-jitsu. For me, unfortunately, jiu-jitsu is more of a time commitment, so the training itself is an hour, but the time to get there, time to, stretch out, go through drilling and everything else, it's usually like 2.5 hours, but that's still 10 hours. And if I look at that between the gym and jiu-jitsu, that's 15 hours. I still have 41 hours of training remaining, of something I can do with my time. And a lot of times, look at your phone, especially if you own an iPhone, it'll actually tell you how much time you're spending on the phone throughout the day. So if you're spending 6, 7, 8 hours a day, 5 hours a day on the phone, you're eating up your time. You're eating up your time. You're eating up 35 hours a week on the phone, on social media, thing that does not move you forward. prioritize correctly. Time management is not that difficult, and it's well within your realm of control. So once you figure that out, you're going to figure out how to move yourself forward and end up in that position that you want to be in a year from now. That's it. So if you like this content, please like and subscribe. If you want to get a hold of me, lifeabsolutism@gmail.com. We do have a website coming up here shortly. And of course, I always include my Instagram link in the description below. Thank you and have a good day.